Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Off the Bench podcast. Today we are in Arizona, so on the go podcast. I'm Joseph, and I'm here with my guest, Max. Max, could you tell the audience a bit more about yourself?
Yes. I'm a high school senior. I have a huge interest in sports. I want to go into graphic design in sports and do like social media for sports teams. Yeah, so sports are I love sports. Yeah.
Sounds great. Well, that's what this podcast is all about. So let's start off with a little baseball. I heard the Braves are having a little trouble with their pitching. Could you elaborate a bit on that?
Yes. They're having trouble with just like their pitchers are giving up a lot of runs. As you can probably see, they have 0 wins on the season still, and they just got swept by the Dodgers and the Padres. So now they're basically gonna head back to Georgia without a win. I believe all their batters too all their starting lineup is without a single player in the 200 batting average.
Wow.
So that's been a huge issue for them. I do see them turning it around. I think just like starting off on the West Coast as a team from the South is a little difficult, especially with two teams that are in the NL West that are really good. Yeah, I think we'll see them turn around soon, and I believe they will make the playoffs somehow.
Yeah, I think everything kind of fell after that team with Freddie Freeman, Dansby Swanson, Matt Olson.
Yeah.
Everything kind of fell from there in Atlanta, but I do see them pulling out and making the playoffs this year. So
I mean, they're off to a slow start, which I believe they were off to last year. I think they have so much talent with Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson. I think Tyler O'Neill's story about 6 home runs and 6 straight opening days, or six home runs in 6 straight opening days, is really impressive. I think that's like a streak that, I don't know, it must feel really good.
Yeah. Definitely so.
While he's not a huge home run hitter, I think that's still a great part of his story and his uniqueness. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I agree with Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson. They have a lot of talent.
Yes.
Their pitching staff is kind of underrated.
Yeah.
But they still have guys that can throw strikes, get the ball on the ground, and get out of the inning so they can get their bats. Speaking of home runs, the Yankees just hit 9 home runs in one game against the Brewers and have continued to smash baseballs. What are your thoughts? Is this because of the torpedo bats, or is this their raw talent?
Okay, so I have multiple opinions on this. First off, I think their stadium's way too small. Their short porch in right field, it just feels way too easy. Any MLB player can get one out just by like hitting like a line drive with the right wind. The ball just sneaks out over the fence. Also, they've only played their games at home, so I will be very interested to see if this short porch is the reason why, as well as these new torpedo bats. But they are making their slow progression into the league. Like Ellie De La Cruz just started using one.
And he just started on a hot streak.
He had a great Monday game. I think he had like a home run and like 3 doubles or something like that. Yeah. But I think it will be interesting to see how they progress throughout the season and how they do on the road.
Yeah. If you don't already know, the torpedo bats have been going viral for their new and improved shape. They were designed by MIT physicist Mr. Lenhard, and he worked for the Marlins, and he created a bat. He ran some tests on Anthony Volpe to see where most of the balls were getting hit on his bat, and they realized it wasn't where the normal barrel was. It was near the label. So he designed a bat by bringing more mass towards the label to give it more bat speed and more power and more consistency. And actually, I'm surprised no one really noticed it. Last year, there were some players, not like the big names like Jazz Chisholm, Anthony Volpe, Ellie De La Cruz, but there were some players that were trying out this new technology, and I definitely think it plays a part. But like you said, the stadium and home games, it should be interesting to see them on the road. There is a Giants game today, and what are your predictions for this game? They're playing the Mariners. What should we expect from the Giants this game?
Okay, home opener. That's the huge deal here. As you know, we are both from the Bay, and we are pretty big Giants fans. I think we're really happy to see how good we did on the opening series. 5-1, sweeping the Astros and almost sweeping the Reds. Lost one game to the Reds, and that was only because of a Bivens giving up a home run. So I think home opener, tons of energy at the ballpark. Justin Verlander making his Oracle Park debut, and then we're facing a pitcher that's a rookie, and I think it's his MLB debut as well. Yeah. So Luis Felipe Castillo or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Not the other Luis Castillo that they have on their team. Not the one that's been in the league for like 20 years. Yeah, I think get those bats swinging. Really would like to see Willy Adames get on the right track. He's like 4 for 18 or something on just in terms of batting. So seeing him get on like a hot streak would be awesome. We already know Wilmer Flores is going off.
Exactly, yeah.
4 home runs in like 6 games. I think that's great to see because last year he was only batting 206 by the end of the year, which is probably one of his worst seasons of his career.
Yeah, he had a couple games where he was hitting well, and those are the games that we went to for some reason. Yes. But then when we watch him on TV, it's always just like strikeout, ground ball. Exactly. But it's nice to see him get on this long hot streak where if he can continue to do this, he's going to have a really good season.
Completely agree with that. And obviously, he's a good guy, so we root for him.
And speaking of Willy Adames, him and Matt Chapman have, earlier in spring training, they've worked on different plays. They're trying to build chemistry. The whole team, I feel like, is really bonded together. In spring training, also, Jung-Hoo Lee took his teammates Luis Matos and Mike Yastrzemski to a place in Scottsdale, Arizona, called Sizzle. It was a Korean barbecue, and he shared kind of his insights of Korean dining manners. You can check that out on the Giants YouTube page. But they are all bonded together. They're going on a real hot streak, and I think they can make a good run in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with that.
Okay, moving on to the NBA. Curry just scored 52 against the Grizzlies, and Jokic just put up a triple-double with 61 points. Ant Edwards stated Jokic is the greatest player he has witnessed, aside from himself. What do you think about this?
I mean, NBA mentality right there. You always got to put yourself first.
Yep.
Having that self-confidence. I mean, this is kind of going off topic, but what are the Pistons doing? They're getting in way too many fights.
Yeah. Just like, if you don't know, they just got like 6 technicals against the Timberwolves.
Yeah.
Because Isaiah Stewart, shout out to him, he's been pretty aggressive lately towards Dante DiVincenzo and Naz Reid. So continue.
His personality is starting to remind me of when Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez started swinging at second base last year. So I think that's got to stop, man. That guy should get suspended for multiple games.
He's like Rogue Cookie Monster.
Yeah, exactly.
I have a hot take, actually. Speaking of Stephen Curry, I think these past 3 to 5 years for him have been his best ever in his career. So the NBA's gotten a lot better in the past decade, with more talent, more freak athleticism, and Curry's just been going on a 3-point run. He just hit his 4,000th career 3-pointer a couple weeks ago, and he's just looking better, more confident on his drives. Of course, he's a veteran, so that plays a part, but I do think he's an MVP contender because I've never seen anybody shoot the basketball like he has. What do you think about that?
I mean, obviously, Joel Embiid, the typical candidate that runs for MVP, has been out for most of the year. That guy should just retire. But Jokic, obviously, is good like every season. I think it's hard to win as a point guard, but I don't know. Yeah, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, definitely, he's like getting better every year. The Thunder are the real deal. So are the Cavs. 2 young teams. But I think Curry could, I don't know. It's late in the year, so I don't know. With how bad the team is struggling to begin the season, like the first 3 or 4 months of the season, I think it may be difficult to lean towards him as being the MVP. But now that they're on like a rise and are starting to move their way up in the NBA standings, we could see something like an MVP coming for him.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, the Warriors didn't get off to such a hot start in their first couple months. But yeah, Curry could, if the team moves up, especially adding Jimmy Butler to the Warriors, that helped them progress and move up in the rankings. And then Shea and the Thunder, they're doing really well. They have Jalen Williams, they have Chet, they have Shea, obviously. Yeah. I think he's just too young and immature this year. I mean, his aura is unmatchable, but I think he's too young and immature this year that I see him as a superstar in the next 5 years. But now, at this point, this is just where he's starting to progress into the player that he's meant to be. What do you think about that?
Completely agree with that. Obviously, turning the Thunder around, they've been pretty under the radar, I'd say, and kind of out of picture for the past 3 to 5 years, I'd say. They haven't really been good since Curry hit that buzzer beater. So, I don't know. I think they are definitely on a rise. They're kind of an exciting story to hear. And they're a team you got to root for. There's no one really you could hate on their team.
Awesome. Speaking of hot starts, the Cavaliers, I know this is earlier this season, but I thought this was an interesting topic. The Cavaliers, they got to a 15-0 start. Now, they've lost to some like mid-tier teams. So the Warriors, that one year where they hold the all-time record for best regular season record, and they lost in the NBA Finals. So I'm starting to think that if you're kind of the middle of the pack and you get some trades before the trade deadline and you start moving up the rankings, I think those are the better teams than the teams that go out on a 15-0 start.
Yeah, I think you make a great point with that. It's all about momentum and all that. So I think closing out the year strong is important. So I think there's like 7 games left in the regular season. So I don't know what their schedule like difficulty is for the remainder of the year, but I think it's important for them to continue strong, and take that momentum with them to the playoffs and potentially make a finals run again. So
yeah. Okay, moving on to college basketball now. The women's Final Four starts at 4 p.m. Pacific time today. Today is Friday, by the way, if you're watching this later, with Texas against South Carolina. And at 6:30 Pacific time, UConn versus UCLA. I think that'll be a very good matchup. Yeah. You got Paige Buchers. Hopefully I said that last name right. Yeah. And then you have UCLA's strong shooting and paint play. Yes. So I think these games are definitely going to be exciting games. I don't see anybody blowing anybody out. Yeah. South Carolina, they've heard it all. They're still a great team. So I think this women's Final Four definitely...
Yeah, I think the coaching staff for all 4 teams is great.
The men's Final Four, which their tournament was predictable, chalky, and somewhat uninteresting compared to other tournaments. Yeah. What about that?
I think NIL deals is kind of where we start with this. Very limited upsets, as you just heard, and you've probably seen as well. That McNeese over Clemson thing, I think it just proves that the ACC is a weak conference. Yeah. As you can tell, Duke. I think only one ACC team made it to the round of 32, and that was Duke. So, Louisville, Clemson, and there's one more that I'm blanking on.
Florida State.
No. Made it to the round of 32, so I think it has to do with conferences. March is crazy. Upsets are a normal thing. One team basically has to get upset. I mean, not necessarily, but it's likely to happen at least once in the tournament. But I think this is one of the more boring tournaments in the past few years. I've actually struggled to watch. Like, I haven't really been interested in watching, like, Sweet 16 or the Elite 8.
Well, Duke.
Even though
the Duke games were good.
Yeah. Even though the Texas Tech versus Florida, that was one of the best games I've ever watched.
Texas Tech. If you didn't know, Texas Tech was confident in the fourth quarter with their strong lead, and then Florida just sneaks up right behind them and destroys them.
Yeah, so I think this Final Four will be interesting. All 1 seeds, which is like the first time in a very long time.
Second time since seeding started.
Wow. So that will be interesting. I think.
Who do you have winning?
Who do I have winning? So it's Houston against
Duke.
Duke.
And Florida versus
Okay.
Auburn.
Okay. Florida, I see as a strong team, as a great conference. I think like 14 of the 16 teams made it to March Madness, which is, I think, one of the best conference, like, show-ups into the tournament in a long time. Most of them made it pretty far. I think, I don't know, Houston's a good team. Big 12, great coaching staff.
Amazing defense.
Yeah, great athleticism. Great three-point shooting team as well, I believe. Duke is going to have it a little bit tougher than they've had it so far. I mean, that's pretty obvious. It's the Final Four, and it's a 1 against 1 seed. Houston, I believe, in the past has struggled in the Final Four. So I think if Duke comes out hot, Cooper Flag does well, and I don't know, they assert their dominance, I think they can win this game.
All right. So, as you know, if you don't already know, I'm a very big Duke fan. Cooper Flag all the way. Con Kniffle. So, Duke, I have Duke winning here. If I wasn't a fan of Duke, I would still have Duke winning here just because of their stacked roster. They go so deep. Their bench points are off the charts. Their point differential is amazing. They win in the point differential. But they have 3-point shooters like Con Kniffle, Tyrese Proctor, and then Mason Gillis can knock down a shot when they need. And then you have 6'6", 220-pound point guard Sion James. He's a transfer from Tulane. I just don't think the Houston team has what it takes to stay with Duke for all minutes. So, and then on the other side, I would like to see Auburn win. I love their coach, their roster. Their roster is amazing, and they have a really interesting story. And then they have their small point guard, Tahad Pettiford. Love that guy. He was actually interviewed, and he talked about how the SEC's aggressiveness, like how it prepared him to play in this March Madness tournament. And as a small guard, I think that's important. We both know we're pretty small people. But I have Duke Auburn in my final, and then Duke winning. So this brings us to the end of our episode. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support. Thank you, Max, for being on the show today. On the road, a different environment. And hope we'll see you next episode. Should be a good one.